Back in 2015, Leica released the original SL, and it was built around a very simple philosophy. A philosophy of what Leica deemed to be the perfect professional camera. Now, 9 years later, the SL3 carries forth that tradition. A ridiculously robust body, a high-resolution sensor, streamlined operation, and all of this supported by a selection of really superb optics. Now, the Leica SL3 gains a lot of the features that we first saw in the Q3. By the way, a camera that we absolutely love. And these features makes the Leica SL3 arguably one of the best Leica cameras you can buy today. Now let's just have a quick look at some of these key features. And the first one up, undoubtedly, is going to be that 60 megapixel sensor. Now, it's not a new sensor. We saw it first in the M11, then in the Q3, and now in the SL3. But it is a rather tasty sensor. And just like in those other cameras, it gives you the 3 resolution modes, so you can shoot at 60 megapixels, 36, or 18, which is very nice. It maintains full raw processability when you are shooting at those lower resolutions, so you don't really lose much. The sensor is then also coupled with the Maestro 4 processor, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to some of the enhancements that that processor gives you. Now, on the sensor itself, you have an ISO range from 50 to 100,000, and you have a very, very decent dynamic range from it as well. You can really pull back some highlights or some shadow details. A very nice high resolution output within this unit. Now, one of the enhancements brought by that new processor is the simple fact that the SL3 is faster than its predecessors. So this unit will now shoot at 5 frames per second. That's with a mechanical shutter and continuous autofocus throughout. You can go faster than that, but you have to lock out your autofocus and switch to an electronic shutter. You'll then be able to shoot at 15 frames per second. In addition to that, you also have IBIS, and it is a 5-stop IBIS system in here. Now, while the SL3 will definitely not be anyone's first choice as a video camera, you do still have relatively decent video specs in here. So just to briefly run you over them, you can shoot 8K at 30 frames per second, 10-bit 420 internally. You can also shoot 4K at a maximum of 60. It's also 10-bit 422 internally, and both of those with an H.265 codec. Now, the biggest advantage brought by that 60 megapixel sensor coupled with the Maestro 4 processor is autofocus. And yes, Leica has finally introduced phase detect autofocus within the SL system. So the SL3 system now has full phase detect autofocus system, which we have not seen in the SL, SL2, SL2S, anything like that. And yes, it is a massive improvement. Now, what you have here is a system that combines phase detect and contrast detect with the goal to give you the most accurate autofocus that Leica possibly can within this unit. But it is very much an autofocus system geared towards stills photography. And let's be honest, that's kind of what this camera is designed for. Now, you have face detect, eye detect, you have animal detect, including birds detect autofocus within this. But, and it's a little bit of a big but, when it comes to continuous tracking autofocus, that contrast detect system that is still deployed here is a little bit of a negative, because when a subject is moving towards you or diagonally across the frame and you're shooting video, the camera does still hunt ever so slightly. And that is a point where other manufacturers still have this autofocus system beat. But for stills, the way that this thing locks on, the way that it finds an eye, sticks to it, and allows you to switch between eyes within a frame, absolutely amazing. One of the best stills portrait focus autofocus systems that I've used in a long time. Now, this wouldn't be a Leica review if we didn't touch on build quality. And no surprise, the SL3 build quality is absolutely phenomenal. it is a beast of a camera. So, full aluminium construction on the unit, as we would expect. It is rock solid. A little bit smaller than what the SL2 was, tiny bit shorter, little bit thinner, still a beautiful grip in it, easy to hold, easy to secure, fits your hand really nicely. Couple of changes that's been made since the SL2 is the addition of a third wheel over here. This by default used for ISO change. Very handy, nice to have in a position, easy to go for. Everything else on here is absolutely as solid as it can possibly be. The tolerances, the turns, the clicks, everything is exactly what you expect from Leica. It is the most premium quality that you could possibly have. A handful of other changes made on here. You now have a tilting screen, which we did not have previously. That moved your buttons that were on the side here to the right, makes everything easier to use, easier to operate, very, very easy. The last addition that they made is that they have now included a CF Express Type B card in addition to your SD card. That's obviously very handy for your faster shooting and your video recording. Other than that, this thing is a monster. Now, as you've seen from the pictures that we've been showing, we were out here at the beach and we did a quick model shoot. Now, when it comes to the quality output out of this camera, I don't think it's any surprise that a Leica outputs a phenomenal image quality. As you see from the images when we punch in, the sharpness is absolutely on point. That 60 megapixel sensor delivers, coupled with that autofocus system, you are definitely not missing a shot. When you're shooting 60 megapixels, there is no qualms about doing massive prints with it. You will absolutely get the resolution that you are after. Now, we know from the fact that this is a mass-produced sensor that Leica look comes from the software that is used on there. But that doesn't really diminish it, does it? Because let's be honest, it looks incredible. Now, if you look at these images, the first thing that pops out to me is the, I want to say, neutrality in the color that it delivers. There's a very soft color palette that is being used within this camera, and it delivers an image that is, what's the right word? It is so natural. There's no artificialness to it. When you shoot with certain other brands, it's almost like there's color elements added in and there's color enhancement that takes place. And I'm very, very happy to say that within the SL3, that is kept to an absolute minimum. The subtlety within the images that you pick up is beautiful. It is natural, it is soft, and it brings forward the beauty of your subject. It really is a dream system to be shooting with and to deliver that image quality. And coming from a guy shooting with a M10 over here, the M10 has a distinct Leica look. To me, the look within the SL3 has moved away from that old school traditional Leica look, and it has taken on a far more subtle appeal, a far more neutral color tone that we didn't have previously. And I know that for some people that might seem like a negative, but if you look at these images, unedited, straight out of camera, you will see that by no means is that a negative. What you get out of this camera is phenomenal. After shooting with this camera this morning, and of course you guys watching the video up to this point, it should come as no surprise when I tell you that this is one amazing camera. But what might be a bit of a surprise is when I tell you that this might very well be the best camera that Leica currently manufactures. And that's a really tough thing to say, coming from a Leica M fanboy. But when you take the construction, the autofocus, and the color science that they deploy here, it's one incredible camera.